Se parlo mi sentite? Is it okay? Problems. We'll be back as soon as possible. Okay. Thank you for joining this campus party session. Each of us has the power to make a contribution to reboot and reboost the world in the right direction. We must reboost the world because sustained and sustainable growth is the only way to keep what people work so hard to achieve: well-being, health, education, welfare, and also to extend these aspects to all parts of the world. The risks are great if we do not achieve these in the near future. Last century's history is evidence of what I'm talking about. The world is struggling with a terrible healthcare and economic crisis. Many families and businesses are struggling. We live in times of great change, and we need new ways of thinking to be ready for what lies ahead. There is no one-size-fits-all recipe to foster growth and to reduce inequalities. But for sure, we need to invest in physical and digital infrastructures, in research and technology, in education, in healthcare and welfare, and we need to move much faster toward green power. Is it enough to simply get back to where we were before the crisis? Is it enough to achieve sustained growth, or do we really need to leverage this crisis to get on a new path? The answer is we must reboot the world in a more sustainable way. In recent decades, we have seen growing malaise. We have also seen a reduction in poverty and disease in many parts of the world. Life expectancies have increased. Women and minorities have progressively gaining more rights, and more children have access to education. Globally, these indicators have never looked better, but they are also no excuse for turning a blind eye to the inequality that still plagues the world, or for doing nothing about the other enormous problems in the world. Uncertainty creates instability, and reasons for uncertainties are plentiful. Rising political tensions threaten peace. Escalating trade wars threaten economic growth. New technologies threaten jobs. Aging populations threaten welfare systems. And global warming is out of control, threatening the entire planet. COVID-19 added to the list. The only viable path for our economy is what I like to call responsible capitalism, which means an economy that can turn its enormous power into positive energy. Such capitalism is not solely about shareholders' returns. It looks at the overall impact of business on communities and the environment. It is a socially responsible form of capitalism that helps close the inequality gap. It is an environmentally responsible capitalism that does not unnecessarily use resources, endangering the planet's survival. It is a financially responsible capitalism that does not promote growth through exponential debt. The level of responsibility of our economic system depends on the daily choices made by each of us. When we purchase something, when we post a like, when we cast our vote, each of us moves the world a little bit in one direction. The current crisis has accelerated many trends that were already happening. Digitalization, smart working, and working from home are the most evident examples. This acceleration opens up unimaginable opportunities for people like you who are preparing for or getting ready to enter the working world. Every industry is changing profoundly, even long-established sectors like banking. And those people who are the smartest and innovating innovating can create enormous value. Today, each of you can create a startup from scratch and change the rules of the game, even in the most closed oligopolies and in the most competitive environments, provided you have a solid new idea, the right team with you, and some entrepreneurial courage. I've been the CEO of very big companies with hundreds of thousands of employees. I was also in politics, but then I decided, with a strong team of talented and passionate people, to launch a startup in a very mature and consolidated industry and create from scratch a new paradigm bank. 2 years ago, our business idea was a PowerPoint presentation. Today, Illimity, our bank, is up and running. COVID-19 has certainly not stopped us. We hired almost 500 professionals coming from 150 different companies operating in 14 different countries and industries. We accumulated a 3 billion euro balance sheet, and we already enjoy a healthy profit. Accelerating change in all industries, digital technologies, globalizations are continuously reshaping the scenarios and the ecosystems. Risks are certainly there, but opportunities are bigger than risks for people like you who are entering the world of the fourth industrial revolution. You can ride the change, or you can wait for the world around you to change. In a few words, make dust or eat dust. The main responsibility to reboot the world clearly lies with governments and companies, but it would be a dreadful mistake for you to think you should simply wait for the new normal and then adapt to it. The new normal will be a constantly changing and interconnected world, and this will mean growing complexity. People who are not equipped will be brushed aside. People who ride the wave of change will do really well. You will often hear it is best to wait to see what happens, but the new normal will be what we make it. And how this happens depends on us and how we behave today. In my life, I've had many jobs, from consultant to CEO, from a civil servant to a government minister to a startupper. I've succeeded and I have made mistakes. I've started from scratch more than once. And I have endured some difficult experiences that helped me make key decisions in the years following. Let me say a word about your present time at school or at university. This is a unique time in your lives that you can never have back because everything is open before you. Clearly, there is a lack of certainty and some fear of the future, but that is perfectly normal. Make good use of these years. You will never have such an open and free period in your life again. This is a period to use to the full, to remain as free as possible, even in later years. Try to discover at least some of the things that exist in the world that you do not know about. Try to find out what exists beyond the world in which you live, beyond the ocean, beyond what you take for granted. The word beyond must come up often to you. In all likelihood, if you develop your curiosity, you'll succeed in life and enjoy yourself throughout life. Making smart use of the internet to read about things that are unknown to you can help you become curious. So can listening to people who have succeeded in areas you knew nothing about. Don't be afraid of not understanding everything you read or hear. What really matters in discovering other worlds, going beyond borders and frontiers. Don't decide about your future by thinking about the jobs that already exist in this world. Think about what you want to be. Try to understand what you really like, what makes you or will make you happy. Try to discover who you want to be like. New jobs will constantly be created. Many current jobs will disappear. Some scholars say as many as 50% of current jobs will not exist in a few years. Those jobs that can be done by a robot or software are definitely on the way out. Nearly all jobs, even those that survive, will be completely changed and augmented by new technologies. Creative jobs and jobs with direct human relations will never disappear. Many industries will grow explosively. The digital world and artificial intelligence, of course, but also robotics, genomics, new materials, biotechnology, new medicine, new agriculture, and many others. There will be a growing need for entrepreneurs, managers, public administrators who can make decisions, who can create teams of people to manage complex problems, who can turn diversities into synergies. You can be happy in your professional career if you take one of these two clear directions. Be a specialist or be a coordinator of specialists. Both ways can bring success, provided you pursue them consistently and with great determination. We don't know what the future will be like. We only know it will be different to today and constantly changing. The combination of technology and globalization will accelerate everything beyond all expectations. There has never been a time with more opportunities than the next few years will hold for those who have the courage to move forward without fear. The future that awaits us also depends on each of us. Always remember in life that each and every one of us is not only responsible for ourselves, for our families, for the company we work or we have created. We are also responsible for the community we are part of. Our behavior on a daily basis can make a difference to ensure these communities move in the right direction. More than 2,500 years ago, a Greek philosopher, Periandro, said it with a sentence I always keep in my mind. Meleta topan, be interested in everything. Feel responsible for everything. Thank you very much for joining this session, and I'm ready for any question of yours. It's an important question, and the answer is easy and at the same time difficult. I loved all my jobs. Obviously, the job I love best, I like best, is the one that I'm presently doing. I'm an entrepreneur now, together with a team of very special people. We created from scratch a new company, a company that wants to be a new paradigm bank in a very old world like the banking one. But for sure, if today I can experience such a wonderful experience, is because before this experience, I had a number of others with some success and making also some mistakes in the past. I strongly suggest to choose the first works, the first jobs, not because you make a lot of money or because you like someone, but to choose companies that invest on young people. Choose difficult jobs. Choose, if you can, obviously, jobs where you do something that very few other people do, because at the end, that investment will pay. The world is not collapsing, will not be the end. Even this crisis will not be the end of the world. Obviously, the time that will be needed to recover from this present crisis will depend on our behavior, on the behavior of our leaders, of our politicians, of our policymakers, of our companies. That's why I'm pushing very much in this direction. Obviously, I'm talking about Europe, but I see today that the perception of the potential damages that could arise from this crisis, damages in terms of well-being, in terms of social malaise, in terms of social stability, are very high. But we can avoid such bad consequences of the crisis. We are now providing emergency finance to families and companies, but that cannot last for long. Now we have to take care of growth that in order to be triggered needs, first of all, investments in innovation, investments in education, investments in infrastructures. And when I say infrastructure, I mean both physical and digital infrastructures. The single countries in Europe have to do their part of this job, but Europe as a union, Europe as a federal body should take care of those big long-term investments that no country today can afford. And in the new global order that is almost a G0 situation, because each of the big power is going its own way, Europe can play an important role, because the competition amongst the big powers will not be only economic, will not be only military, it will be also in terms of social model. And there are a number of values in Europe that can be certainly useful for us, but also useful for other parts of the world. But the responsibility today and the time for getting back to growth is a function of the ambition and the determination of our policymakers in launching a big investment effort. So how can we ensure that our job as managers can provide a real social improvement? Each of us should really look at what he or she is doing and ask this question. Without me, without my job, without my company, would the world be better or worse, or indifferent to the presence of what I'm doing? And if we are fair in answering this question, we have the answer to your question. For example, what we are very proud about at Illimity, our bank, is that we provide credit, we provide loans to companies that are restructuring themselves, that on many occasions do not find funds elsewhere, but we work with them, we develop with them courageous business plans, and we escort them through the crisis, and we benefit together of the results. So sometimes it's a matter of what kind of job, and this kind of job, for example, is useful not only for you and your company, but for the community as a whole. Sometimes you're doing something that is solving problems that have not been solved yet. When I was CEO of at Intesa San Paolo, thanks to the support of our board and thanks to the skills and competence of a person, Marco Morganti, who created with me Banca Prossima, we created a bank focused, specialized in supporting, in lending to non-profit organizations, social enterprises had not, until that day, or almost had not a bank devoted to supporting their activities. And today, Banca Prossima became one of the best, largest bank of that kind at the global level. But these, I mean, are examples that are not that easy to copy. But the first question I made before is the crucial one. Thanks to my job, the world is better or worse? Open banking, it's an opportunity for a startupper like me. Which are the limits? Can a startup create a bank using open banking? For sure. Today, you can create from scratch, and we created a direct bank that is an open banking platform, and from scratch, in a few months, thanks to technologies that were not available until a few years ago, we created a successful direct bank, and a lot of partners are joining, because create an open banking platform means that you are not only in the position to sell your products and services, but you can attract other companies, other service and product providers who can use your platform to reach the market. Today, and Illimity is a case, you can create a fully digital, fully modular, fully in cloud bank, and open banking is a further booster to reach growth and profitability. From all global events, do you think capitalism is destroying, or do you think it is just an adaptation to a new order? As you know, there are many different kinds of capitalisms, and there are many different kinds of social models, and many different kinds of capitalism match and combine themselves with many different kinds of social models and political situations. So hard to make and give a judgment of capitalism in itself. If the question is market economy, is free entrepreneurship a good instrument to create well-being in the community? My answer is yes, provided we limit the drawbacks of capitalism, because in the last decades, the worst or the most extreme interpretation of capitalism, the so-called neoliberalism, has become the rule of the game, and that has created the 2008-2009 crisis, and has created the enormous shift from real life to finance. Let me use this word. But it is in our hands to use capitalism in a very responsible way. I think that market economy and free entrepreneurship are very useful instruments to develop innovation, to create growth, and to solve the problems of the world. We should be a little bit more courageous in applying some laws that are often mentioned but not so often applied. I'm referring to antitrust legislation. I'm referring to privacy legislation. I'm referring to tax and law havens, anti-money laundering legislation. Just by applying in a more courageous way throughout the world these three pieces of legislation, we could avoid many of the drawbacks of extreme capitalism. But I strongly believe that we should not throw it away, but push in the direction of making capitalism evolving toward a more responsible attitude. It is a difficult topic, and we have to believe that it's possible to have a better life in this new world. Yes, we can really bet on this possibility. It's not a given. We have the instruments, we have the technologies, we have also the resources to make life much better for everybody in the next and in the future in general. Obviously, we have to reduce the misbehaviors that are creating the opposite results. I mentioned the growing confrontations between global powers. That does not help growth. That does not help fight against poverty. I mentioned the insufficient effort toward the management of climate change. We are really running the risk of spoiling definitely our planet, but we know that energy transition, the transition towards green energy is possible. And today we have the technologies to have the same amount or even more, a bigger amount of energy by shifting towards green and renewable energies. We have to make sure that these trends are implemented. And it depends also on us. As I said before, when we post a like, or when we buy a product, or when we cast a vote during elections, we make these trends going or not going in the right direction. Thank you very much indeed. I don't see any more questions, so I consider this session closed. And thanks again.